Hello everyone, Rory here, and in this session I'm going to teach you all that you need to know about PowerFX text functions. We're going to go through them all, and I've got them up on screen for you here. So there's some simple functions like left, right, mid. Then we move on to slightly more difficult ones like find, len, trim, TrimEnds, value, and then we will have some more complex ones like text for formatting text using Concatenate, fairly straightforward, the Char, and then finally the split function, which I absolutely love. Now, if you want to go directly to any of those, you can look at the slider at the bottom to navigate directly there, or you can actually look in the comments and just navigate to the thing that you need to get to. Also remember the little bit of data that we're going to use is down in the comments section below as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move directly into a demo of all these functions in the order in which we can see them on the screen. I'll see you in the demo. As you can see, I'm open on a blank canvas here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a gallery. I'm going to make that a vertical gallery. Then I'm going to go across to the right hand side and then change the layout so that it's just a blank gallery. What I'm then going to do is I have got a piece of text here, and it's just a table function. So I'm going to copy that, click onto the gallery again, then go onto the items, and then paste that in there. So just remember that text that you're looking for there, you can find that in the comments down below. So what I can now do is I can start inserting text labels. I can drag that on the screen there. So, and also we don't really have much data. There's only 3 lines of data here. So I'll just move this up here. We're just playing around with the text here. This is a deliberate thing here where the kiwi fruit, you've got some odd spaces in the kiwi fruit, and that's deliberate. So what we're now going to do is now going to look at the various functions that we can apply here. So here's another way of bringing the text function. I'm going to click on the label there. There's another one. It's just guessed at another field to bring in. I don't want that field. What I'm going to do is I want left this item dot fruit . Then I can put a comma in and then say something like 3. This is the number of characters that I want to see. And notice that it doesn't bring us anything for the kiwi fruit, and that's because there's actually some spaces at the front. So if you actually look at the data itself, you'll notice I've popped some spaces in there. What I'm now going to do is the right function. So I'm just going to do the same thing, but I can do right here, right, and make sure that's selected correctly. That'll give you the right amount there, and then we can move on to the mid function. So, and that's basically going to be, a number of characters in the middle of the text that you see there. So I'm going to go mid this item dot fruit, and then what we need to do is put the correct parameters in there. So we need to tell it the start number. So I'm going to say start at 3. Then I want you to give me 2 characters from when you start at 3. So I'll close that. So it started at the second P and then given me the PL. And actually, as it turns out, with the kiwi fruit, it actually started with the character there. And one of the reasons why it's been done that way is because I want to show you how to fix the problem that we've got with the kiwi fruit. Now, before I do that, I actually want to show you the len function. So I'm just doing a quick copy and paste of that. And I'm going to say, well, I want it to be len this item dot fruit. It doesn't take 2 parameters. It just takes, in fact, the particular field there. So we can see that apple is 5 letters, kiwi fruit is 16 letters, but it's kind of not 16 letters. We know it's not 16 letters because it's looked more like about 11, but the reason we've got an issue is because of all the spaces that we've got. So what we're going to do is we're going to address that by using trim. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to wrap it in the trim function. So trim, and then do this item dot fruit. So what you can now see is that it's actually trimmed it down to a sensible size. What you perhaps don't notice is that actually there was a number of spaces in the middle of kiwi fruit, and so the trimming that's taken place is at the ends, and it will, if there's a number of spaces in between the text, it will leave you with one space only. So what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to combine that with the len function in order to give us the correct length of that word, including the blank. So it's going to be len, and then it's going to be trim this item dot fruit, and close the brackets there, and that's going to give us 5, 10 and 6, which I'm sure if we actually went into it we would find that was correct. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to use the trim ends, and what that it will do is it will mean that when we look at the kiwi fruit, it's actually going to return the spaces that we have. So if I do trim ends, then we've still got the spaces in the middle, which may be relevant to some business function that you may have. So that has taken us through left, right, mid. What we haven't done yet is we haven't done find yet. And find is kind of fun because find means that you go looking for a particular word, if you like, and it will tell you the position of that particular character. So maybe what we'd do is something like look for an A, say. So what we're going to do here is we will pop another label in there. In fact, we don't need this one anymore. So what we'll do is we will just reuse that, and I'm going to go find. Now it's now going to say, well, what are you looking for? And I'm going to say the letter A. And what am I looking at within? I'm looking at it from within this item dot fruit, and that does take extra parameters. You can start from the third, fourth, etc. characters, but actually what we're going to start, we're not going to use that parameter there, and we're going to close the brackets. But notice that with Apple it doesn't actually find it because it actually is capitalized, and that is a problem for us. So what we're going to do is later on we were planning on looking at upper, lower and so on, so that we can actually work with that. And I think I will actually pick that one up right now. So we are now going to look at the using the lower function. So I'm now going to wrap that with lower this item dot fruit and pop the bracket in there, and so it does actually find the character correctly, but it doesn't just find a single letter. So it could be find AP in this item dot fruit, and it does find AP in this item dot fruit under Apple only. And maybe if we looked at something like FRUI from kiwi fruit, then we'll also see the position of that letter, and for certain things that can be really useful. So what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to bring onto the screen the we've got another field. So I think we've got a field like product code. So it's this item dot product code. So this might be where you're starting to look for certain things within your text. And so what I'm now going to do is do maybe a search for I can do a search, and we will do find, and I'm going to say 34 within this item dot product code, and that should return, it'll return the same thing for each of them. But if we went into it and we actually started playing around with the data and then put something like 034, then we would actually find that the position is different depending on the record that we are looking at. So we've actually covered a good few things here. What we haven't done is we haven't looked at value. And I think value is quite interesting, certainly when you want to do things like that are mathematical in nature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring another label on here, and I'm going to do this item dot, I think we've got a price field here. So I've got an odd field. It's a text field, but I've got some pound notes in there, and I've also got some straight numbers. And what we'll find is that if we wanted to do another field, like a field where we do some maths on the values that we have, we won't find that this will work correctly. So if we wanted to do this item dot cases multiplied by 2, then that's going to work. It's fine. This item will get cases. It's okay. But actually, if we do this item dot cases times this item dot price, it's not going to be happy with this. Oh, it is actually happy with us. I was really not expecting that. So that's a little bit of cleverness there, but don't expect it to always work. I think that we kind of got lucky in here, and I wouldn't necessarily expect that one to work. But what I would do in this case is I would be tempted to, I'm going to change this field here, and instead of making it the £3, I'm going to actually convert it so that we actually do value and this item dot price. And you do find that with some things that is extremely useful, is an extremely useful way of working with things. So in each case, the number of cases is 3, so it's just 3. It multiplies up to 9 and so on. So the value function is, I would sooner use the value function if I was trying to convert a text field versus just hoping that it's actually going to work as it did actually do in this case. So what I would be inclined to do is do this item dot cases times this item times a value, this item dot price. It will result in the same thing, but it will be more likely to be successful in more cases. So now what we're going to do is we are now going to have a little bit of fun with using ways of presenting the words, and we're going to use upper, lower and proper to present the information slightly differently. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go on to this thing here. In fact, I'm actually going to change the data a little bit. I'm going to make sure that the apple starts with a lowercase a, and I'm going to say the kiwi fruit is a lowercase f on the fruit there. So what we can see is that apple is all lowercase, kiwi fruit is a combination of the two, and as is banana. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to simplify this. In fact, we'll keep the trim ends, that's kind of nice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it with upper. And I want you to just think for a moment as to what this is actually going to do. Okay, we've thought that one through, and we think it's actually going to make it uppercase, and indeed it does that. So similarly, we can make it all lower, and the sort of time when you might consider using these sorts of things is if you're trying to compare email addresses and you're never quite sure how one has written them and how the other one has written them. And if you want to compare the two, it can quite often be a really good way of making sure they're both aligned. So if I was to pop in the user email, so if I pop in that there, and I was to do user, open brackets, close brackets, email, what you may find that this will actually return it's actually all lowercase, but sometimes in these data sources, they can be combinations of upper and lowercase and so on. So you can use the upper and lower to manipulate that around. So what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to use the proper one. Now the proper one is kind of fun because the proper one essentially capitalizes the first word in each word. So notice that the kiwi fruit is now, the F in kiwi fruit has now turned into a capitalized F. So they've all been consistently presented. And if I went across to this one, we've done the trim ends on that. But if I just do proper on this one here, what you can see is that in each case, I think they were all uppercase in the first one, but now what we've got is that they're actually uppercase in the A, got AA, AL, AB, and it's uppercase there. So this is more a presentation tool that you may find useful in the future. The next one that we're going to look at is arguably one that I would be recommending you use quite often, and that is the text function. And what the text function does is it presents certain fields in more acceptable ways. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start life looking at the now function. So what we've got here is this is different ways of presenting dates. And what I'm going to do is I can use now. So I can bring in a field, I can pop in a label there, and I can just go and we'll just say now. And this will present itself in very different ways depending on what your local settings are. So it might present it this way for me, but it might present it slightly different for you, in particular European versus United States. Now, what we can now do is we now can play around with it a bit better, and so what you can see is that we've got that text now, and then it's actually date time format long date, and then what we can do is text now long date time, so it's actually got a time field in there. Similarly, you can actually just do long time 24, that's only got the time in there. Then you can do short date, date time format short date, and then finally, you know, I quite like this sort of way of looking at things, and that's where you've got a lot of control over what's going on here. So what you can do here is you can do the same thing, and I obviously invite you to do the same. And what you can do is you can now play around with how you want to present this. So it might be that you actually want to go DDD, which is going to give me Thursday. D. I'm not sure if I want D or DD. Let's just check that one out. So you've got 03 or 3, so maybe that one's fine. If I pop another D in, you're going to get the whole of the word of Thursday. And if you pop another M in, you're going to get all of the word February. And you don't actually need these dashes in at all. You can take those out. It's just doing those in by default. So you've got a lot of control here. Now, what you do need to be careful with is that we've got this hour and minute, but if you actually take the hour out and just have the minute, then it actually breaks down. It actually only knows what it's doing if it's already seen that there's an hour there. So just be careful about putting the minutes in using the text function. What we're now going to do is we're going to look at the text function, but working with numbers here. And I've got a very long number. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 with a decimal place here. You can see it on the screen. You can just type that in yourself. It's actually not really doing very much formatting here. It's just got the hash, 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 hash. Now, what it is doing is essentially it's actually rounding it here. So I can put dot, and then do the hash. And then what you will find is it will then round it to 1 decimal place, and then it will also, if I pop another one in, it'll round it to 2. Now I don't think that's a very good number because it still rounds it. So let's do 53. So yeah, you can see that the number is being rounded there. The other thing that you can do there is you can pop a comma in there, and then that's also going to put the commas in at the relevant points, and you can also put a currency value in as well, so that you can present your information in a slightly better way. So if we then move back to the gallery that we created, what we could do is we can actually say that this we've done our calculation here. So if we put text around that and then move to the other side, and then we do the quote, and then we do hash, comma, hash, 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 and then quote. We actually haven't got any decimal places, so not really a problem, but if we put the pound notes in front of it, then that might be a slightly better way of us presenting those numbers. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to move on to looking at how we combine elements of text. So what we're going to do is just a very simple way of combining the name of the fruit with the product code. And we're going to look at a few ways of doing that. So I'm going to copy and paste that. And what I'm then going to do is I'm going to do a combination of, I'm going to use concatenate initially, concatenate. And we'll do this item dot fruit, comma, this item, it'll be dot product name, product code, and then close the bracket. So you can keep adding more and more fields in here. We can see that actually that's actually combined them. We can then do the thing that we did before where we pop trim in there and then close that around the this item dot fruit. And so that's now going to combine those two. And then what we can also do is we can put another comma and we can do quote space quote. And we can see there's a split there. And we can actually just put maybe a slightly easier to read split so that we've actually now got one field with both of those elements of text. But it's not the only way of doing that. So what we could have done is we could have just done trim. And then instead of the comma, we could have put an ampersand. And then instead of the other comma, we could have put another ampersand. Now do bear in mind, if you're in different regions, it may not be a comma that you're using in the first place. It may be a double semicolon. So that has now done exactly the same thing. Personally, I would use the ampersand. It's just easier to read. But if you want to use concatenate, it is obviously there for you. What I'm now going to do is take a look at a slightly odd function called char. And really all it is that you can represent any character of text using a number. So let's just take a look at this as a flight of fancy. Let's move back 2 paragraphs. As you can see, char 65 is a capital A, but actually you would find that the lowercase a would be a completely different number. So what we're going to do is going to create a little gallery and we're going to use all of those. Now I think there's about 127 of them. So what I'm going to do is going to pop in a gallery, go to vertical gallery, and then I'm going to make it the layout, and I'm just going to make it a blank layout. Then what I'm going to do is move across. Let's just make this a bit bigger. What we're going to try and do is see if we can actually get all of these characters on the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to here, and I'm going to do sequence. It's got a fun little function here. Now 127, it's going to give us the numbers 1 through to 127. So if I actually go onto here and pop a label in there, you can see all of those numbers going in there. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to put a little wrap on this gallery here, and I'm going to make it wrap every 8. So then what I'm going to do is I'm now going to do the char thing. So this is where the kind of moment of truth as to whether or not any of this things works. Now notice that it's actually wrapping from right, effectively from right to left. So maybe I needed to do a slightly different gallery. And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to pop another one in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap that in the char function and then open brackets and close the brackets there. And you can actually see that these things are starting to light up. Now, I'm just looking at this thing here. It's actually not really presenting enough of them on the screen. So I think what I need to do is I need to make this a bit thinner so we can get all of these things appearing on the screen here, and maybe make this thing a bit smaller, make you down to something like 10. And we can see all of the things on the screen. In fact, I wonder if I can just go onto there and actually change the color of them to something a little bit easier to see. So make this perhaps, let's make it this yellowy kind of color. And you can actually see that all of these characters have been presented. And in fact, we don't really get anything useful until we get to something like 33, where we get an exclamation mark and so on. So it's kind of a function that you might find useful. At least you know it's there now, and that actually it will return something to you if you needed to. Now the final function I'm going to show you is actually one of my favorites. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove a lot of the things that are on the screen here before we start using it. So the function we're going to look at now is the split function. And what it does is it takes a piece of text and you tell it how you want it to split, and it will convert that into a little tiny table. So we'll see that and we'll use that on the product code. So what we're going to do is I'm going to delete some of these things here. In fact, let's keep Apple in there, but we'll remove a lot of the other bits and pieces. So let's get rid of those. And so what we're going to do is we're going to split this. Product code here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to pop in another gallery here because it's going to create a table. So I'm going to insert a gallery. It's going to be a vertical gallery. So it's a gallery within a gallery. I'm going to make it a blank gallery. And then I'm just going to move across here, and then we need to tell it what goes into that gallery. So what we're going to actually tell it to do is the items for the gallery needs to be split. And what are we going to split? And it's going to be this item and dot product code. And the way in which we're going to split it is by using the hyphen there. We'll close the brackets, and that's now actually split it. Now the reason why we can't see anything is because we haven't actually put anything in there. So actually put a text field in there, and what we can actually see is that it has actually run that split process. If I actually go and just move this up here, and if I actually put a little border on there, in fact I can't do that very easily anyway. So let's just pop a label in there, nice big label. Pop you in there, get rid of the text, pop you, send you to the back. Let's just put a little border on there. Where are you? Border, and make that 2, 3. There we are. So we've got a little border in there so we can see the difference there. So if I actually go full screen on this, and just go full screen there, then we can see that it has been split. So we've got AP034AA and then LM34AL. It has actually split it correctly. And the question people might have is, well, actually, I just want the AP bit. That's the bit I really need. And so what you would do with that is, instead of having the gallery in there, which is now, this thing is now getting in my way. So I need to go reorder and then do send to the back. And what I can do now is I can copy that. I'm going to put a label in here, and actually I'm just going to use the first function and use the same thing there. So we should do first, should get away with that. In fact, dot result. So it'll spit out a thing called a result, and I have not done that correctly. So it's just a case of getting all the brackets into the right places. So it's first, then split product code, and then we've got the 2 brackets and then dot result. So that's then going to give us the AP, LM, and then BN. And then what we've got, we can also do last. And there we go, we've got the AA. And if we wanted to get the one in the middle, we'd have to do something a bit more clever, like first N, so we could then return the item there. But it's a little bit beyond this particular session. So we've got to the end of the session. Hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you like, subscribe, all those good things, and also refer to the course that I've had on the screen during this session. What we've done today is we've covered the text functions. We've looked at left, we've looked at right, we saw the mid function, we looked at the find function, which I think is quite cool actually. We looked at length to measure the length of a piece of text, trim to get rid of the spaces, TrimEnds to do something similar, the value to get the value out of a piece of text, upper, lower, and proper to make the casing of the words how we want it. We use the text function in interesting ways. We looked at it to look at values, but also look at dates. It does more than that, by the way, so I'd welcome you to go to the documentation and look at that. We also looked at concatenate to push two text fields together or pieces of text together. And we also looked at the kind of fun char function, and we saw that you could actually represent a piece of text with a number, and for certain functions that would be useful. And then finally we got on to the split function, which actually is the sort of thing that's a real game changer. When it works, it's absolutely amazing. That takes us to the end of this session. I hope you've enjoyed it, and make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you in future sessions.